My name is Lamarr Baxter with AccuPlan Benefit Services. I'd like to thank everyone for joining this evening's webinar. As we always do with AccuPlan, we're always trying to provide you with updated information on retirement investing or any type of investment, in particular retirement. So one of the topics we're going to be covering is looking at other alternative investments. Self-directed IRA, a self-directed 401k is one of the alternatives to growing your retirement account. But we're going to be speaking with Kevin Keyes this evening, and he's going to go over and cover some information on other alternative investment options that also can assist you in growing your retirement account. The topic he's going to be covering tonight is going to be tax-free retirement guarantee, more income at retirement, the ability to participate in the market gains but not the losses, new concept to many, which is something that I totally believe in, which is also called infinite banking concept. Looking at insurance from a different perspective, most people usually will see any type of life insurance, and only benefit is usually once you pass away, and then your beneficiaries benefit from any types of returns that you get from the policy. But there's a new concept with the insurance policy called living benefits, so you can actually use this policy while you're alive. Self-completing, we're going to be also looking at plans for individuals and business owners. One of the things we pride ourselves on here at AccuPlan is also targeting not just the individuals but the small and medium-sized businesses. So what we're going to do is going to start off with Kevin. With this the first portion of the presentation, you'll cover the information I just conveyed to you. For those who are just joining the call, we're going to be, you guys are going to be muted, so you won't be able to participate, at least not verbally, but you can also definitely chat, send us information via the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. This session will be recorded, and within 1 or 2 business days, I'll be going ahead and getting out a recorded link so you can play it back at your leisure, as well as forward it on to others who you may feel may be benefiting, could benefit from the information that we're going to be covering tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover my disclosure here, and I'm sure they're going to have one as well. The information, as I mentioned here, is for educational purposes only. So with that being said, it's important that you consult with your tax professional, as well as any financial professional, as well as legal professionals. As with any investment, you want to consult with them to make sure everything's in order and that you perform the necessary due diligence before moving forward with any investment. So we're going to go ahead and turn this over to Kevin to kind of give you a brief background on Kevin. Kevin has over 40 years experience in financial services. Experience include, but not limited to, retirement planning, insurance products, annuities, investments, real estate, and loans. His approach to finance is one common sense, so his clients can easily understand the financial picture and make the best decisions for their situation. The client has always been the priority under the tutelage of Kevin Keyes. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Kevin. So I'm going to switch the screen over to you, Kevin. So it's just a matter of following the prompts, and your screen should show up on the screen, and we'll go ahead and let you take it away.
All righty. Waiting.
You should receive a prompt any second now.
Okay. Show my screen. All right. That works.
Okay. And I am waiting for your screen. And I see your screen, so we're ready.
Okay. Now all I have to do is allow me to see my screen. It's not showing up on my thing.
Okay, you need to open up your PowerPoint.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. Now we're ready to go. Okay. Common sense retirement planning. People come up with all kinds of wild, crazy schemes, but most of it is common sense. And that's what this presentation is all about. But before we get started, Lamarr already went through some disclaimers, which is good. We have different partners that we work with, so it depends what the client needs. Freedom Equity Group Insurance Services basically is who we use for all the insurance products that we represent. And of course, AccuPlan, which needs to be there for people who need self-directed retirement plans of one sort or another. JSN and Associates, forensic tax analysis. Sometimes people need some assistance in planning things so that they get the most bang for their buck and don't give too much of it away to the tax man. Flex Checks is a merchant services outfit that provides financing to customers for businesses. And finally, the POWT College Planning and Funding. There are a lot of people who are trying to figure out how to get the money to send their children to college. And there are different kinds of programs, but the one that's most overlooked is in the area of endowments that come from the colleges themselves, and that's basically what POWT does, as opposed to the government programs. As far as insurance partners, there are a number of them, but these are some of the primary companies that we work with because of their products. As you can see, people like National Life have been around for an awfully long time, 1848. A lot of money, $44 billion in assets. American National, 1905. American General Life and Accident, 1900, $147 billion in assets. And then the new kid on the block, 1995, American Equity, with $25 billion. So we have some partners that we work with that have been around for an awfully long time delivering for clients. And that's one of the reasons we like to work with them. Advanced Strategies works completely with Freedom Equity Group, or FEG, Insurance Services, educating Americans on common sense financial strategies. Okay, there are a lot of things you can do if you know what tools are available, how to use them, and what kind of a challenge you're trying to meet. We are a consumer-driven financial services company. We've got the 21st century tools and technologies, strategies that in many cases people are completely unaware of. They don't even know what is available. And if you're working with the right people, Lamarr would be a perfect example. There are things that he can do through AccuPlan that people have never even heard of, never even thought they could do. And we're in that same kind of category. There are a lot of things that we know how to do that most people are unaware of, including many of the CPAs and tax attorneys. We're serving American individuals, families, and businesses. You have different kinds of programs for different needs, but the goal is simple. It's always to increase your income, protect your family, and safeguard your assets. These days, a lot of people have kind of changed their attitude from, let's say 10 years ago. People used to say, well, what's the return on my money? Today, people are more concerned with the return of their money. And then you can talk to them about the return on their money. So that's the, we're the safe money guys, I guess you could say. Right now, there literally are 200 million people in this country that need common sense financial and retirement solutions. You take a look, 82 million between the ages of 20 and 34, but half the kids coming out of college right now can't find jobs, at least not that line up with the education that they just finished, spending 4 or 5 years getting. 46 million, 35 to 49, half the time they're not sure what's going on because things are changing so fast. And then you have 77 million of us baby boomers in the 50 to 64 category, and we're saying, hey, wait, what happened? We thought we were doing things one way, and here we are. Boy, have things changed. It didn't turn out the way we thought. I can't tell you how many times in the last few years I've spoken with people who are baby boomers, and maybe they had retired early and said, oh yeah, man, I got it made in the shade. And then all of a sudden, things changed. 2008, for example, and they said, oh, now I have to go find a job again. Average incomes across America are down $4,000. 23 million people out of work. There's a $4.3 trillion plum sitting in 401k plans right now that the government's drooling over. They want to get their hands on it so bad. And then, of course, we got 40 million seniors that are over 65. And their biggest concern is, what if my money runs out before I run out? And then we've got 47 million people on food stamps. We're in a time right now that is not like any other time for most of the people that might be attending this webinar. So take a look, retirement. How does it work? First question is, where do most people save for retirement. Oh, by the way, here's our little disclaimer. We're not giving you tax or legal advice. When can you afford to save for retirement? That's the first question. And the answer is you can never afford to save unless you want to. It's all about wanting to. Because when you're in your 20s, I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but when I was in my 20s, I enjoyed, going out and having fun. Partying was a good thing. But a few years later, it's like, oh, geez, now some of the money spent on partying needed to be spent on diapers and baby food. And then, of course, you're, getting the hot car that you couldn't afford to get when you were 20. And then pretty soon you have to get a house. Now you have payments that are a little different than your rent when you were rooming with your friends. Maybe you hit a midlife crisis, and then all of a sudden you have to figure out how to send your kids to college, and that is expensive. And finally, you consider taking a vacation, but there's always something that can draw the money away that you could and maybe should be setting aside for your future. But even at 55, it's not too late. The time to save is now, whatever your age. Hey, you'd say, well, I need to know what the target looks like. Let's say your goal is to have 20 years of monthly retirement income, starting at age 66 and going at least to your 85. In most cases, right now at least, that will get you to your life expectancy. And we're going to use an 8% assumed rate. I know, before you even say it, most of you on the webinar here have not averaged 8% in the last 10, 15, or 20 years in your retirement plans. I use that because we have averaged actually a little better than 8%. So that number wasn't just plucked out of the thin air. We have a reason for using it. If your goal, for example, we'll take the middle of the road here, let's say you wanted $5,000 a month and you were 20. Well, you'd only have to spend $113 a month getting that 8% assumed rate till you're 65, so that you would then be able to have a $5,000 a month income for the next 20 years. At 30, price went up a little bit. Now it's $260 a month. Still doable. At 40, $628 a month. With everything else that you're doing, might be kind of pushing the envelope for most people. At 50, though, whoa, $1,727 extra dollars a month. Most people are going to start shaking their head at that one. And if you wait till you're 60, you better have two really good jobs, okay? Because you're going to have to set aside over $8,000 a month in order to hit your goal. Now, if you said, well, gee, by the time I'm there, $5,000 a month won't do it. I'll need $7,000. Well, okay, then put away $11,000 a month, or $2,400 a month, or $879 a month. The point is, the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to do what you need to do. And you've always got these 5 retirement gotchas kind of staring you in the face. The first one we kind of looked at just now. It was procrastination. Getting started. That's enemy number 1. But the second one, even if you've been pretty diligent about it, fees. They're excessive and they're hidden. And is that acceptable? Even Congress said it's not acceptable. Last year they passed legislation that says now these people have to tell you the truth about what kind of fees they're actually charging you, because it makes a big difference. And then, of course, there's market risk. That one's kind of obvious. We're talking about retirement. So does it make sense to put your assets at risk? And the answer normally should be no. That's where all these people retired and now they have to go back to work. And this keeps kind of happening every 3, 4, 5 years. We have a really nasty market, and all of a sudden people go, uh-oh, I don't have $500,000 anymore in my retirement plan. Now I have 200 or 250 or whatever, and that is a game changer. And then you've got health risk. You might be rolling along thinking everything's going your way. Maybe you're one of the people that isn't losing any money, and maybe you're one of the people that's actually making money, and it's offsetting the fees, and you got started a long time ago, but then all of a sudden you get sick or you have an accident, you get hurt, and all of a sudden you can't work. Well, now what happens? And then finally, there's taxes. We're $16 trillion in debt now. Somebody's going to have to pay for that. And the answer is who? It's you. You and I and everybody else. Are taxes going up or down because of it? Well, every time we've had major deficits like that, taxes have always gone up. If you look at the tax history, it gets pretty scary. We're not the only ones that have looked at this. Back Time did an article, why it's time to retire the 401k. Is that the best place that you could put your retirement nest egg? Most people put money in a 401k because they don't know what else to do. They don't know where else to put it. They go to work and they go to the HR department and HR says, yeah, this is what people do. And then they say, well, gee, of my choices, which one should I take? And they go, oh, we don't give advice like that. So what do? You ask the guy in the next cubby hole next to you. He goes, well, I talked to James down there, who talked to Sue, who talked to Harry. As it turns out, everybody's picking this option, whatever this option happens to be. That's where most people are getting their advice. And so it's sort of like handing a loaded gun to a 6-year-old and then being surprised when somebody gets shot and killed. It's no surprise. Most people are not investment experts, but the 401k typically has put the responsibility for those results on you, the retirement plan contributor and participant. According to Time, quote, the ugly truth is that the 401k is a lousy product. It's a financial flop. Why? Well, some of the things that we just talked about. Now here comes the biggie. They tend to be high risk because most of them are funded in and through the stock market. Not all, but probably 99% of all the 401k money out there, or IRA money, or 403b money, or 457 money. It's not just 401k, okay, but that's the best known. If you look at this chart, the maroon colored line is the actual stock market. Okay, and that's going back to September 30th, 1998. Well, for a couple of years there, it was looking pretty good. But then we had a little problem in 2000. In fact, for 2 years we had a big problem, and you lost money. Now all of a sudden you had less than you started with. And then we had a few years where things were looking pretty good again. We went up 5 years in a row. And you said, whew, boy, okay, we're sort of back where we belong. And then all of a sudden, boom, 2007, 8 hit, and people going, oh my God, here we go again. We got clobbered for 2 years. Then we stopped the carnage, turned it around a little bit, and then, we haven't done a lot in the last year or so either. Now that was the actual market, S&P. If you look at the dark blue line, that is taking advantage of a strategy which ties the performance to an index like the S&P 500, but the money's not actually in the index. Therefore, it's not subject to the risk. The risk has been transferred to the insurance company in this case that provides that particular product. That's what insurance companies are supposed to do. Whether it's car insurance, homeowners insurance, medical insurance, whatever kind of insurance it is, the idea is to transfer the risk from your shoulders onto the shoulders of the insurance company. And when you do that, you'll notice that if you look at the two charts, whenever the maroon chart went down, the dark blue chart just went sideways. It's called zero is your hero. You didn't go up, but you didn't go down. You didn't lose anything. So you never had to go back and try to recapture what you at one point had already achieved. If you look at the total history sitting there in front of you, because you never included the downtimes, you look at the two ending results, 107,000 versus 171,000. And the one with 171,000 had zero risk. Well, would you like better returns with zero risk or worse returns with risk? Yeah, it's obviously a rhetorical question. Now, the other thing that goes in there is high fees. This was a government-sponsored report, and according to the report, the hidden and excessive costs in 401ks, the average is 2.9%. Okay? There's a Princeton PhD in economics who's also written a book on the topic, and he made the observation that if you just have 2% average fees, remember those fees come out whether you win or lose in a given year. And he said that 2% annual fees, that's from everything that they do, is going to literally cut your total retirement nest egg roughly by 50% if you're going to do this for any length of time, like say 30 years or so. According to this Demos report, the average in fees was $159,000, per plan over time. So that has a devastating effect as well. If you don't believe me, do the math sometime, crunch your numbers at 6% and then crunch them at 8%. And look at it over 30 to 40 years. The difference is staggering. And then finally we got high taxes. If you look back at certain times where we really racked up some debt, most of it was, having to do with fighting wars and financing them. And so tax rates, highest tax rates, were pretty steep. 94%, that's up there. 91%, 57%. It was 35, now we're up to 39.5. And, that's just the federal. If you happen to be here in California, well, our thing just went up to 13.5, so that's on top of the 39.5. It's ridiculous. When you take money out of a qualified plan, you will get hit with those taxes, and they will have a very devastating effect, which you're going to see in a minute. Well, what if there was a way that you could, in essence, opt out of the tax system at retirement, and you could pay lower fees and never ever lose money in your plan ever again? What if? Well, guess what? It's sort of the secret of the ultra-rich. It's kind of like I've asked people in the past, do you really think that people like Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, the Oracle of Omaha, and so on, do you really think these people are putting money into a 401k? Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. They've been doing what wealthy people have been doing for a few hundred years. Patrick Kelly wrote a book called Tax-Free Retirement. And it's easy reading. It's a good book. It makes the point. Another fellow wrote Common Sense Retirement. It's a little more technical, but he makes the point how to get 300% more spendable income. In other words, after tax, spendable income at retirement. I can't imagine anybody not wanting to know how to do that, especially when you can do it with zero risk. Wow. Consumer Reports even got into the mix. Gotcha, 401k fees. There's so many things that have been written on this topic over the last few years because it's a big deal. Now, look at the four phases of retirement planning. Well, first, typical IRAs, 401ks, and all the usual, government-sponsored, shall we say, plans. You've got the contribution phase where you're putting the money into whatever it is, and you're hopefully accumulating it, stacking it up. And that's when they put tax favored. It used to say tax deductible, but that wasn't really accurate because it's kind of a phantom deduction. because it comes back and bites you in the you-know-what down the road. On the accumulation, it used to just say tax deferred. Okay, well, the key word there is deferred. In other words, sooner or later, it's going to get you. And here's where it gets you. It gets you when you withdraw the money, and it gets you if you have any left before you die, oftentimes when you transfer the money. I talked to a doctor, and his big thing that he was all upset about was the fact that he was probably never going to take anything other than the minimum required distribution out of his 401k. He had somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 in there, and he was concerned about the transfer side of it. He had 2 sons, and he said, you know, they're each going to get, if it was right now today, $300,000 that year, fully taxed on top of their regular income, and they both earn well, you know, good figures now. Well, you know, in this environment, that means that they would have probably paid out about half of all the money. So can you spell highest tax bracket? Going up in our state, going up across the country on the federal level. The alternative, you can use what's called an indexed universal life plan. It's an insurance contract. The money that you put in is after tax, but then you have tax favored accumulation, in other words, no current tax due. When you take the money out, if you do it properly, it's tax-free, and when somebody inherits down the road, that's tax-free. Okay, so does it make sense to defer only taxes and possibly pay more later? Not really. And this is a specific type of insurance, because remember, we looked at those things that can, the gotchas that can stop your plan from finally turning out like it's supposed to. Well, what if you live life insurance? You don't have to die to use it. That's kind of a revolutionary idea in life insurance, because most of the time when you say that, you know, you go to a party and somebody says, what do? You say, oh, I'm in life insurance. Instantly you have about a 10-foot radius all the way around you, and it's empty, right? Because everybody associates it with dying. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. That may be why most people think they're buying it. But what about if you live? Living benefits comes into play, and this is something that the vast, vast, vast majority of companies do not offer yet in this country. They got it in other parts of the world, but you know. Here's the question. Does your life insurance policy pay you if you have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, et cetera, and you don't die? Does it pay you if you get injured and you have a chronic illness situation, or you can't perform 2 of the 6 daily living activities, or you're cognitively impaired? That means, you know, let's say you get hit by a car and you're convalescing for the next, you know, 1.5 to 2 years while they're trying to put you back together. Well, you're probably going to need help doing at least a couple of the things that we consider typical activities, normal everyday activities, like getting out of bed, taking a shower, feeding yourself, getting dressed, okay? That kind of basic stuff. And then finally, there's the biggie, and that's lifetime income that's guaranteed and it's tax-free. You know that you can count on it forever and ever as long as you live, even if you get out to 120. And what's the cost for all of these little goodies? There is no additional premium cost at all. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but there's no extra cost. When you consider that the average age of a heart attack, stroke, or cancer is 43, and a year later everybody's going to probably go bankrupt, again, we don't make up the statistics. 62% of all bankruptcies are still due to medical expenses. And most of those people, almost 80% of them, had health insurance. Well, that meant that the doctors and the hospitals got paid. But what about the mortgage and your car payment and kids going to college tuition and little items like food? Millions of Americans are going to survive a heart attack, stroke, or cancer, and they can't earn income for a while, or maybe never again. Okay? 70% of people are going to experience these kinds of problems by the time they're 65. The question is, are you covered? And why should your family wait until it's too late? Most Americans can't or won't afford long-term care insurance. 90% of them are going to need it. Okay? 40% are going to need to spend time in an actual skilled nursing home for almost 3 years. Well, current cost is $65, $70 a month. Where's the money come from? It's your choice. You could get up to $1.5 million for critical illness or chronic illness. So you can get a card or you can get a check. And it's a tax-free check, by the way. Here's an example of that. This guy got a policy, and it was literally 4 or 5 months later. He got a little stomach ache. Went to the doctor. The doctor said, well, you have stage 4 stomach cancer. He got the best underwriting rating you could get a few months earlier. Well, so that he could go take advantage of other therapies and that aren't always available in this country. The company sent him $344,000 tax-free dollars so that he and his family could keep going and deal with the other things that were a little more important, like his health. Okay, he got that check without dying. Okay, this is a big deal. Now, there's a 401k IRA disaster. What happens? This has happened to people. $100,000 sitting in your 401k, you guys can do the math and bounce it up to $400 or $500. But let's say that you have a couple of years, as we've had in the last 10 or 12 years, and the market drops 50%, real estate values drop 30%, all of a sudden you have a heart attack. And now you need $30,000 for income. So you take $45,000 out. That's before tax. You pay your taxes. Now you have $5,000 left. You have a 10% penalty because you took it out early. Now you're $500 in the hole. Versus you have the tax-free alternative. The market drops. It doesn't have any effect. We can't help your real estate values. You take $30,000 out for income. You still got $70,000 left. There are no taxes. There are no penalties. So you still got $70,000 left versus a negative $500 before the state penalties like we have here in California. Which one would you rather have? Okay. And if you had the heart attack and that caused your need for the money, yeah, maybe we send you $250,000 tax-free as a living benefit. You didn't need to take anything out of your plan. Again, it's your choice. The question is this: will your IRA or 401k or your current life insurance policy take care of you if these things happen? Will these things be self-completing if you get devastated in this way? Are you concerned about outliving your income, 401k fees, market risk? You ought to be. Are you counting on Social Security? You got to be kidding me. Are you interested in an income that you cannot outlive? It's guaranteed and it's tax-free. That is retirement income security, kind of like the old pension plans. Okay, it's your choice: retirement income check, guaranteed, or fully taxed at retirement. Now you have the power of indexing just to show you some real numbers. Here's the question: are you willing to take a risk with your retirement? Some people say, well, I want the guarantees, I want the annual compound, I don't want any downside risk. Others say, well, I'll be subject to gain or loss. I'll risk the loss in the hope that I get some high returns. Well, what if you get to have the best of both worlds? Here's an example, again, real numbers, 12 years worth of totals. The numbers in the second column there, starting at 19.5, that's the actual market performance. Then you have the S&P value, okay? You started with 100. First year you had 119.5, then you lost, and you lost 3 years in a row. Then you came back a little bit, you kept coming back, and then unfortunately, boom, 2008 was a nasty year. You dropped down to 73,000. You came back to 90, back to 102, and 102,000 is where you ended up 12 years later. Well, we put a cap on what you could get. In this case, we used 13% because that's typical. But you'll notice that if you did 13% or better, that's what you were credited with. If you did less than 13%, if you did less where it was a minus, it just stayed at 0. And you can see the far right column that indicates that clearly. End of the 12 years, instead of 102,000, you had 213. again, which one would you want? The smaller number, and that's before fees, by the way, with risk, or do you want the bigger number without the risk? We didn't make the numbers up. That's just what the numbers are. So you can do it two different ways. Here's an example. Here's contributions to age 65. 35-year-old male putting in $500 a month, whatever kind of plan it happens to be. $180,000 goes in, tax deductible on the qualified side, not tax deductible on the other side. The cumulative after tax, I stress that, yearly income spendable at 66 is $82,258. Now, we got a little bit of a difference here because at age 72, that's the last time you're going to get any of that income. You run out. Your grand total that you got to actually get your hands on and spend was $459,000. Over on the other side, we quit running it out after age 100 because you kept getting that income. And by the time you were done, you had $2,879,000 spendable dollars for the $180,000 that you put in, and you did whatever you wanted with it. And on top of not being depleted in 6 years, your cash flow kept going all the way to 120. We just didn't show you the number. If you look at your account value at age 100, well, over on the other side, of course, it wiped out after 6 years at 72. But over on the indexed UL side, your account value was over $2 million, even though you took all that money out. And if you died right then, on top of the $2,879 that you pulled out and spent, your beneficiary is going to pick up another $2,151,000. There is no comparison. So stop thinking of life insurance as an expense. Start thinking of it as a portfolio asset, like real estate, stocks, and bonds. Or as the banks do, they have to use Tier 1 assets for a certain percentage of their assets. That only includes a few things: cash, government securities, gold, silver, and life insurance. I'll be darned. They own billions of dollars worth of it. They've learned how to use it. Lamarr said something about private banking. When you have that asset and it's built up, you can use it as a private bank. That's another discussion, but it allows you to do things like recapture all the taxes that you're otherwise going to have to pay for your IRA and your 401k. It will help you to earn interest on your taxes the way wealthy people do, or on any other expense as far as that goes. These are the kinds of things that we go over with people, show them how to do this. Sounds like it's impossible, but it's not. Again, knowledgeable people have been doing this for a long, long time. There are even ways, by the way, that you can make this tax deductible. There's another thing called Section 79. We won't get into this discussion, but it's a way that if you have a business, you can deduct 100% of the money, and yet over on the other side, when you access it, it's going to be tax-free. That's another discussion. Solutions to fit any budget. There's all kinds of insurance programs, from cheap term to guaranteed universal life, which essentially is permanent term, and indexed universal life, which is what we've been talking about. Pumps up the income at retirement. You own it. You control it. You can overfund it. You can put as much money in there as you want within, if you do it right, if you design it correctly. You don't have the limitations of qualified plans. More disclosures. We want to say thank you. If you have an interest in finding out about this kind of a program for yourself or Section 79 plans, how could you have this and make it deductible? Infinite banking, how can you use it to finance things and actually convert liabilities to assets? These are the things that you can do when you know how, and that's what we do. That's what we're about. Common sense, guarantees, no risk. That's what we like to do, because you can do incredible things if you just know how. We will make available, by the way, to anyone who would like a copy, no charge to you, of course. It's a free book, and it's called Common Sense Retirement: How to Earn 300% More at retirement for your income. You can call us. You can go to the email that's on there. Just tell us that you want it, okay, and we'll get it to you. So I thank you, and I guess we're open for questions.
Actually, we're going to do the Q&A towards the very end. So
okay.
I'm going to go and do my presentation, and then what we'll go ahead and do is open it up for any questions that we have at that point.
Sounds like a plan.
So, Kevin, thanks a lot. Excellent information. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important to truly diversify your investment portfolio. The information that you covered today is excellent advice, excellent education when it comes to looking at other asset classes to grow your retirement account, or just looking at other investments, alternative investments as a whole, even using private capital. Once again, Kevin's information, like I said, was conveyed here on the last screen here. Feel free to give him a call or email him, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go ahead and go into the next phase of the presentation, which is talking about self-directed IRAs, another form of a positive alternative asset vehicle, or should I say alternative investment vehicle when it comes to growing your retirement account. With that being said, go ahead and give you a little background on myself. My name is Lamarr Baxter. I'm the Director of Business Development for AccuPlan Benefit Services. I cover all of the Northern California area. My objective is to assist my clients and prospective clients and educate them on growing their retirement account in a safe and sound way. I conduct many presentations, both live as well as webinars in terms of educating existing clients as well as prospective clients on how to use this very powerful tool to grow the retirement account safely. My background consists of 22 years plus of varied financial experience, including mortgage origination for both commercial and residential real estate. Many of my clients have invested in various aspects of real estate, being the #1 asset class for the self-directed IRA 401k. That is a very popular investment option, which also includes, I think Kevin mentioned also about the private lending, and that's another aspect that a lot of our clients are using. Taking a passive approach to real estate investing by actually becoming the bank, so to speak, using their IRA or 401k to loan money against properties or secured by properties in the form of a first or second deed of trust. In addition to my mortgage background, like I said, I've done a lot of different areas, things when it comes to investments, such as it stands right now, the SEP IRA, where I'm actually loaning monies out of my self-directed IRA, secured by a first deed of trust. Usually determine my transactions are anywhere from 6 to 9 months. In the past, I've also owned, in addition to my private residence or my individual residence, I've had several real estate properties that I've owned, both raw land as well as actual fixtures when it comes to single-family residence as well as some multi-family units. So a lot of my expertise that I bring to the table coincides with the different type of investment options a lot of my clients are looking to explore. As I mentioned earlier, in case you came onto the webinar a little bit late, we do not provide any investment advice, tax, or legal advice. It's very important that you consult with your professionals in those areas, as well as perform all the necessary due diligence before moving forward with any investment. Just kind of give you a background on AccuPlan. We're a national company and growing. As we mentioned earlier, this is a growing area when it comes to growing your retirement account. This is not a new concept. It's actually a concept that has been in place since 1974 as part of the ERISA Act, known as the Employment Retirement Income Security Act. Back in 1974, Congress allowed you, depending on the structure of your plan agreement as a custodian, to invest in everything with the exception of life insurance and collectibles. So when you call your tax professional or even your financial planner advisor, they may not know that this, well, they know the investment vehicle exists, but they don't know a lot about it because it's not something that they offer. And kind of all fairness to them, if it's not an area of expertise for them, a lot of times they will gloss over this area of the tax code, which is IRS Code 4975. We provide self-directed IRA and 401k administration products and services to individuals as well as small and medium-sized businesses looking to invest their retirement accounts in non-traditional or alternative investments. We pride ourselves in expertise in low cost and quick service of self-directed IRAs and 401k. Our staff consists of, like myself, I mean, we have a variation of backgrounds when it comes to investing as well as banking and other areas in the financial arena. So we have a well-staffed team when it comes to getting our questions answered as well as helping our clients understand what the options they have and the power they have behind them using the self-directed IRA or 401k. Prohibited Transaction 4975 is basically as part of the IRS code that basically pretty much lets you know what you can and cannot do using a self-directed IRA. An IRA cannot engage in any transaction, whether it be direct or indirect. So what that means is you have the power to make investments, but you have certain rules you must follow in accordance to this code. So for example, some examples of prohibited transactions that the IRS will not allow you to use this type of account would be investing with a disqualified person, which we'll talk about in an upcoming slide in terms of who you can and cannot invest with. So some of those prohibited transactions or structures of transaction would be including selling or exchanging or leasing property, lending money or extending credit to any other disqualified party, furnishing goods and services or facilities to yourself or any disqualified party, or to an entity or organization where you have controlling interest or stake within that organization. So these are some examples of disqualified persons. As a disqualified person, that would include yourself, your spouse, parent, grandparent, children, or grandchildren. That also would include lineal ascendants and descendants of either your spouses and any other relatives that basically would fall in the vertical line of the relationship chain. Any fiduciary of the IRA. So for example, if you're a real estate or tax attorney or any other professional where you have a fiduciary capacity over the individual or the account holder, you're considered a disqualified person and cannot basically engage or partner with the IRA or the IRA holder in the transaction. Anyone providing services to the IRA, as I just mentioned, one of the tasks that I take on using my self-directed SEP IRA is that I invest in private loans secured by real estate. I get this a lot after any presentation I conduct, whether it be live webinar or via actual live presentation, that they want to actually partner with me. Well, you're allowed to partner with anyone who is not providing any of the services as like what I'm doing with AccuPlan. So if they had an account with the competing custodian and the deal made sense and I wanted to work with them, then I can actually move forward. I get a lot of calls on whether they can actually, you have individuals. Right now the banks are not lending to pretty much anyone, at least not at the level that they had done prior to 2008. So you have existing businesses where they're looking for capital to either grow or to stay in business. So the rule is if you have an existing interest in a corporation, partnership, trust, or state in which you own directly or indirectly 50% controlling interest or more, that is considered a prohibited transaction. That would also include if there's a spouse involved. So a lot of times I get the question, well, what if I own 49% and my spouse owned the other remaining percentage of ownership in the entity or the property? The rule is you and your spouse combined cannot have a controlling interest of more than 50% in that entity or that asset that the IRA or 401k is looking to acquire or invest in. So basically what you want to do is to make sure that you avoid messing with the IRS. As it stands right now, as we all know, the IRS is pretty much starved for cash right now. They're looking to turn over every stone for any tax cheats, and they're looking at the self-directed IRA and various structures with the self-directed IRA to make sure that there's no self-dealing or self-benefits as it relates to you pulling funds out of the account and putting them in your pocket or living or possessing any, living within any assets if it's real estate or possessing any asset owned or held by the self-directed IRA or 401k. This is a visual in terms of what it looks like as it relates to starting an account and actually funding the account. So the first step is what you would do is open the account. You could have the option to open the account, whether it be online or we can send you a PDF file of the application packet, which usually if it's online, it's a matter of opening the account within a matter of 25-30 minutes. It usually takes about 5 or 10 minutes to complete the application, but if you have questions or you have to fill in the forms based on not having the information a bit readily available, then it may take a little bit longer, but tops usually 15 minutes to establish the account online, in which immediately you're going to receive an account number. You're going to have to wait for the actual legal vesting. Once we receive your ID, a proof of identity for the account that's being established, then we're going to issue what's called a legal vesting in order for you to move forward with opening the account. The next step, once the account is open, is to fund the account. You have the option to either transfer funds from an existing IRA or roll over the funds from an existing 401k or employer-sponsored plan. Now keep in mind, If it involves a rollover, you are usually prohibited or restricted from accessing funds from an employer-sponsored plan such as a 401k, 457, any type of plan where you're still currently employed with the employer. Usually you have to separate from the employer by either retirement, that you're the age of 59 and a half or older, or in some cases you may have a plan agreement that has what's called an in-service withdrawal, which will allow you to access up to a certain percentage of the vested funds in order to direct those funds over to another retirement account. In most cases, what I've seen is the two industries that usually would have those clauses, what's called the in-service withdrawal in the contract, would be the telecommunications industry or anyone in the nursing industry. The healthcare field usually would have those clauses within the contract. So if you're not sure, the first step is to contact your existing custodian, or better yet, contact your plan administrator and obtain a copy of your actual plan agreement. I would pretty much refrain from calling the gatekeeper and asking them, can you actually access your funds, because in most cases they're going to give you a generic answer of no, because in most cases they've never even opened the plan agreement to determine whether certain clauses exist. So the best way to go about this is to contact your plan administrator, obtain a copy, and if necessary forward it over to me, and I'd be happy to scan through it, determine whether any provisions within the plan agreement will allow you to access the funds while you're still in service with that employer. The next step to fund an account would be a contribution, depending on the type of account that you would have, and you do have access to various types of accounts, and look like I skipped over some of the account types, and I'll go over real quickly in terms of what accounts that you have access to in terms of self-directing. Any plan that you have with your existing custodian, such as a traditional IRA, a 401k, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a 401k, which we call a solo K, which is designed for those who are 1099 or self-employed, those plans can be self-directed. So, for example, if you're 1099, you have access to all of the plans that I just mentioned to be able to self-direct those plans. You're pretty much restricted in terms of if you're your W-2, in terms of the only options you have in terms of opening an account or a self-directed account, which would be the case with any existing plan where you're a W-2 employee. You're limited to either a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. A traditional IRA basically allows you to contribute up to $5,000 per year, and these are calendar years for 2012. The actual increases have taken place for 2013, where you're allowed to contribute an additional $500 per year. So, for example, a traditional IRA for 2012 is up to $5,000 for that calendar year. If you're over the age of 50 and a half, then you can contribute an additional $1,000 catch-up, so a total of $6,000. The same would be true for the Roth IRA. The difference between the Roth IRA and the traditional IRA is that the traditional IRA is going to grow tax-deferred pretty much like your 401k, which means that as you make money within that retirement account, grow your investments, all the funds or the yields go back into the account tax-deferred. You're only going to be taxed once you pull the funds out in the form of a distribution, whether it be prior to 59 and a half or after the age of 59 and a half. But keep in mind, if you take what's called an early distribution, you're going to be subject to a 10% early distribution penalty in addition to the normal taxation based on whatever income tax bracket that you're in at that time. So you definitely, before you move forward in terms of taking funds out of the account prior to 59 and a half or even beyond the age of 59 and a half for supplemental income or whatever the case you may want to use the funds for, is you definitely want to consult with your tax professional. I've actually had situations where clients are taking money out for supplemental income, not knowing that once they pull those funds out, and if they have additional income, that additional income could basically bump them into a higher tax bracket. So you definitely want to consult with your tax professional and kind of weigh the pros and cons and how much you're going to be taking out in the form of a distribution if that is something that is required. The Roth IRA is a tax-free account. When we say tax-free, it's any accounts, any growth that you realize in that account, regardless of the asset class that the funds are held in, is that after 5 years and 59 and a half, meaning that you've had the account for 5 years and you've reached the age of 59 and a half or older, any growth that you realize once you've reached those two milestones, you pay no federal income tax on the growth. So for example, if you were to buy a piece of real estate and it's $100,000 now and accrued equity over the next 5 years and it gone up to $300,000, provided you've met the 2 milestones, 59.5, and you have to count for 5 years, you do not pay any federal income tax on that $200,000 growth, which is something that's very attractive based on what's happening in both at both the state as well as the federal level when it comes to taxes. As it stands now, no one knows where it ends. I mean, as of was it March 1st, what they call the sequester is going to possibly kick in if they can't come to an agreement, meaning the government, in terms of possible tax increases as well as revenue cuts. So once again, the future for its taxation is very uncertain. So if you have the ability to either grow your retirement portfolio, either tax-free or tax-preferred, if you can take the tax hit, definitely sit down with your tax professional and see that as an option for you. Because there is a myth out there is that you may be told by your financial planner, advisor, or even just others in the financial arena that if you wait until you retire, you would actually pay less taxes because you're in a lower income tax bracket. That is not necessarily true. Depending on what the tax rates will be, say in the next 10 or 15 years, yes, you may be, it's all relative, meaning that if your current tax rate is 15% and that's the lowest tax rate, that may not be the lowest tax rate in, say, 10 or 15 years. So if you have the ability to grow your retirement account double-digit returns and you're able to pay to grow these retirement assets either tax-free or tax-deferred, you definitely want to once again consider tax-free, meaning using a Roth. I have clients also that will experience the best of both worlds, where they're actually growing their retirement account both tax-free and tax-deferred. And over time, what they're usually doing is doing what's called partial conversions, moving monies from the self-directed Roth or self-directed IRA, whether it be traditional, SEP, or any of the tax-deferred accounts, and doing what's called partial conversions. Despite what you may have been told or believe, you have the ability to do either a partial or full conversion. Whatever amount, whether it be partial or full, is what you're going to be taxed on doing the conversion. Now, the question usually comes up, well, what if I'm under the age of 59 and a half and I perform a Roth conversion? What about the 10% early distribution penalty? The early 10% distribution penalty does not apply to Roth conversions, so that type of transaction, meaning conversion, is exempt from the 10% early distribution penalty. So the only thing you would be subject to is the taxation at regular or ordinary income, whatever tax bracket that you would be in. So for more information on that, definitely give me a call. I'd be happy to send you over more information on the different types of plans that can be self-directed. So once again, once the account is established and funded, your next step is to fund the investment. What you require then is to provide whoever the investment offer is the legal vesting. Your IRA or 401k will be assigned a legal vesting in which that information will be entered into an agreement, contract, or whatnot to allow you to move forward to acquire or to make an investment using your self-directed IRA or 401k. So once that process is done, your IRA owns an asset or several assets, and you continue to duplicate the process. There is no time limits on how long you have to hold an asset. If you want to hold an asset for 20 years, 30 years, it's totally up to you. If you're looking to turn a profit in a short period of time, once again, there are no time restrictions on whether you have to hold, based on how long you have to hold an asset. So in summary, just going to go ahead and real quickly, wanted to cover some additional information. Actually, there's several other topics that we can cover when it comes to the self-directed IRA, when it comes to things such as using an LLC, a lot of different options in terms of structure, partnering, and so on and so forth. But in summary for today, an LLC is not required to invest in real estate if that's an option that you were looking to embark upon using the self-directed IRA. Some are looking to purchase real estate and are under the impression that depending on whether they talk to a custodian or a custodian who's partnered with an attorney, in which what they're doing is bundling a package to where they're usually requiring you to open an account as well as an LLC. That is a myth. You're not required to use an LLC to invest in real estate. An IRA or 401k can own an LLC outright. No self-dealing is allowed in any transaction. And if you're going to go that route, fair market valuations, whether you own property or an asset within the self-directed IRA or within an LLC, fair market valuations are required each year, in which that's part of our IRS reporting. Each year, part of what we charge you for is the IRS reporting and record keeping, but we count on you as the account holder, or if it's an LLC structure, the managing member, or the manager of the LLC, to provide us documentation to give a fair market valuation of all the assets held within your account. So that's pretty much my presentation today when it comes to self-directed IRA. Our key topic today was talking about common sense retirement investing, which, as I mentioned here, I'm a firm believer in diversification of your investment portfolio, looking outside the traditional realm of investment options and looking at those alternative options. Kevin covered some great information. Here's my contact information if you have any questions relative to getting any information on self-directed IRAs, the different structures, the different plan types, the pros and cons of structures and whatnot. That's what I'm here to answer, any questions you may have. Once again, as it relates to any tax advice or legal advice, you're definitely going to have to consult with your tax and or legal professional in those areas when it comes to any questions that fall into those two categories. So that's my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Kevin to see. Kevin, so one of the questions that come up commonly is in terms of the living benefits. Can you go a little more detailed, explain the living benefits of the UL policy?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, living benefits are really nothing more than an advanced payment of the death benefit. Mm-hmm. This goes back to the days when Christian Bernard was replacing hearts for the first time. They took a look and realized that they were helping people physically stay alive, but a year later, financially, they were wiped out. And so they went to the insurance companies and said, look, guys, if it wasn't for us, you would have already written the big check, But because of what we do, you didn't. But the people are getting wiped out here financially. With all your actuaries, can't you figure out how to advance some of that death benefit money, which sooner or later you're going to have to pay it anyway? And these smart number crunching people can figure out what it's worth today. So for instance, like the guy that you saw the copy of the check for, he got a check for $344,000. Now his total death benefit was a little more than that. Okay, it was about $400,000, not quite. But because of the severity of his condition, they said, we'll advance this much. And again, because it's a, technically speaking, payment of a death benefit, even though you didn't die, that makes it tax-free. So depending on how severe your heart attack or your cancer or whatever you had, that's going to determine what percentage of the face amount of that policy is able to be paid out to you. And to access it, all you really need is your doctor to verify that you do indeed have, such and such a condition, and then that's it. They cut the check. Okay. It's pretty simple, actually.
Okay, perfect. The next question, I guess, would be directed towards me. The question is, what is the benefits or the difference between a self-directed SEP IRA and a self-directed solo K? If one is self-employed or 1099, both have the contribution limits of up to $50,000. Actually, as of 2013, up to $55,000, or up to $55,000. So one of the questions I usually will ask my clients, both have the same contribution limits. To kind of give you a description between the two, the self-directed SEP IRA is, once again, an investment vehicle used by small businesses or those who are 1099 or general partners, whereas an actual individual retirement account has a high contribution limit. It is a tax-deferred account. One of the differences, or should I say the distinguishing difference between that and the self-directed 401k, the self-directed 401k is a hybrid between a SEP IRA and a 401k. You're able to contribute as both the employer as well as the employee. So what that breaks down to, based on contributions, when you use 2012 numbers, is as an employer, you can actually, well, as an employee, you can contribute up to $16,500 into the 401k portion of the plan, and then the balance up to the $50,000 would be as the employer. And the balance is usually determined by 20% of your gross adjusted income up to the balance up to $50,000 is how you can actually get up to the full amount of $50,000. There's other reasons that those who are investing in real estate, for example, would consider the self-directed 401k is that, one, you can borrow, as with any 401k, you can borrow up to $50,000 from the 401k, and you have up to 5 years to pay it back. You can obtain what's called a non-recourse loan, where all the other retirement plans are not exempt from what's called UDFI, which is unrelated debt finance income tax. This plan, because it has an employer-sponsored plan component, is exempt from the UDFI or unrelated debt finance income tax. So if you're, for example, looking to obtain any type of non-recourse lending to leverage or leverage financing to acquire an asset, this is the ideal plan because it's exempt from that UBIT tax or the UDFI tax, which ranges from 15 to 38% of the portion of the profits were derived from leverage financing. So, for example, if it was real estate, the transaction amount is, say, $200,000. $100,000 of it was used from the IRA. The other $100,000 was from leverage funds. That would constitute 50% financing. So 50% of the profits would be subject to the UDFI tax. So it's something that, when it comes to those features and benefits, are very attractive. Some don't like it because it does require a little more bookkeeping than an actual SEP IRA. But once again, depending on what your objectives are, both short-term and long-term, would be totally up to you. And that's something definitely you want to sit down with your tax professional to kind of help you along as to which plan would be best for you, looking at your entire financial and tax picture as relates to your investments. See, the next question here, it looks like is for you, Kevin, as far as infinite banking.
Yes.
Explain a little, just really in summary, in terms of that and how that actually works. How does for example, small or medium-sized businesses take advantage or capitalize on infinite banking, where they're not they can actually use funds that they've made through these policies and actually borrow from themselves or finance their businesses through investments through the policy? How does that work?
Okay, basically, it's like any bank, you have to capitalize it. So in this case, you're putting money into the contract, into the policy, and then down the road, expenses come up or whatever it is that you need money for, and you could literally reach in, and instead of taking money from your plan, this is a really important distinction, you leave your money there to keep growing. Instead, you go to the insurance company and say, hey guys, look, you have X amount of dollars of mine sitting in an account over here. Why don't you use that to collateralize a loan that I want you to make to me out of your money, not my money, your money. So for instance, let's just say for argument's sake that you had $50,000 of cash sitting in there, and if we go back and use our averages, it's been averaging around 8% a year for 26, 27 years now. But during that same period of time, the average cost of borrowing from the same company has been a little over 5%. Well, that means that you get your money, you get to use it for whatever your purpose was that you needed it for, and in the meantime, you're getting the spread between what your money's actually earning and the cost to borrow the money from the insurance company. Now, it gets better because you can, of course, pay the money back, which increases your borrowing power again. Or, let's take the extreme example, like the doctor who came in and was upset about the taxes. Well, it was simple. We moved his money over a 6-year period of time, and each year the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board wanted their cut, and so he simply went to the insurance company and said, hey guys, I just, I dumped $100,000 in here at the beginning of the year. Now the bad guys want me to, cough up $25,000. How about it? And they said, yeah, great. because they have to find good, safe places to invest the money that comes in the door for them. Well, there's nothing much safer than having something secured by cash that you're sitting on and control. So that's a great thing for them, and he did that. And you know, like he said, well, what happens down the road? Because he doesn't really need the money. He said, you know, when I die, don't my heirs, in his case the two sons, have to pay all that back? Well, yeah. So 6 years at roughly $25,000 a year, $150,000 plus some interest. Let's just round it up and say he owed $200,000 on the day he died. The policy was for $1 million. So the insurance company reaches in its, you know, death benefit pocket, pulls out $1 million, peels off $200,000, puts that in its loan repayment pocket, and sends the other $800,000 tax-free to the two boys.
Okay.
And his comment was, but wait a second, doesn't that really mean that the insurance company paid itself back? Well, technically, no. In actuality, well, yeah, we'd all say yes. But again, technically, no. So it works. And that's the kind of stuff that people have been doing. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at taxes or if you're a dentist and you're going to buy a new drill thing, or you're a doctor going to get a new MRI machine, or just somebody wants to buy a new car or a new truck for your business. You can use it to finance anything, and you pay it back on your terms, and nobody can come and take your stuff because your stuff did not collateralize the loan. You can start your own leasing company with those funds. So let's say you're a doctor. Fine, start your own leasing company. There's the source of funds. Go buy the equipment, lease it to your practice. Now you're getting more money out of your practice on a tax-favored basis. There are a lot of creative things you can do with infinite banking.
And this is excellent information. Is the reason why I'm glad that that question was asked, because once again, a lot of us are actually kind of scripted to follow old ideas or old formats when it comes to becoming wealthy and independent and growing our retirement accounts. But these are some powerful tools. For example, what you just described is what we would consider alternative capital. And using resources that are yours, and opposed to basically making someone else rich. At the same time, you use it for whatever objective you need it for, and at the same time put money away for the long haul. So this is great information, Kevin.
Yep.
So that looks like we've actually gone past our timeline here. We don't have any more time for any more questions. So here's my contact information. Kevin, if you can go ahead and give them your contact information, feel free to give me a call or email me, and as well as Kevin. Kevin, go ahead and give them your information again, and we'll go ahead and wrap up for today.
Okay, the phone number at the office is 408-377-1100. That's for the office phone. My cell phone is 408-596-0416. And for purposes of an email, especially if you would like a copy of the book, again, for free, we'd be happy to make it available. Just shoot an email to, what is it? Yeah, send the email to iulretirement@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect.
I'll give you one more just in case. You can send it to Kevin, K-E-V-I-N, Keyes, K-Y-E-S, the number 7, at yahoo.com. There's an alternative email just in case.
Okay. Well, that, like I say, wraps it up for us today. I'd like to thank everyone for logging on to this webinar. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar has been recorded, and within the next 2 business days, I will be sending out a playback link to all those who attended, as well as those who have actually registered but wasn't able to be on this evening's call. And feel free to listen to it at your leisure, as well as to pass it along to any others who you would feel would benefit from the information that we shared on today's webinar. Once again, I'd like to thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you all.